Okay, okay. You out of here? Okay, I'll see you when you get off. Love you. Mm. All right, all right. Let me go get me some water. I know I'm gonna need it. I'll take you because I won't need you. I'm back, I'm back, I'm back. I had to get me some water. Okay. Oh, I don't have my ring on. Oh, well, I'm not getting back up. We are here on Tuesday. Thank you for coming by for Pleasure Tools Tuesday, where we talk about different tools that you can use, external tools that you can use to bring excitement back into the bedroom. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about restraints. So, I want to give I guess not necessarily a trigger warning, but just, some people do have strong feelings about restraints. And so, if you are one of those people, then, definitely make sure you're taking care of yourself during this while we talk about this subject, because everybody, again, people have different experiences with different types of things, and so this might be something that people have a not so good experience with. So um, let's talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. My name is Katasha Gordon. I am a certified holistic sexuality educator. A certified holistic sex educator, pretty much. And I've been teaching sex education for the last 11 years, specifically to a predominantly Black audience, and specifically surrounding pleasure and anatomy. So, what you're going to be getting from me is going to be a straightforward, practical definition of sex and how to make sure that you are participating in your sexual activity safely and with all the knowledge you need to make sure that everyone's on board. Everyone knows what they signed up for, and everybody knows what's going to happen. So creating um, a sexual existence that feeds you and nourishes you and makes you excited to participate in sex and makes you curious about sex is the goal. So, and not curious in the typical way of, whatever's going on, but curious in the way of wanting to know more about how to give pleasure, how to receive pleasure, and how to be open to sex as a pleasurable experience, which is not, the normal for a lot of people. Many people have uh, very big emotions around their sexuality and their sexual health, and that could stop them from being able to explore and experience what a healthy sexual existence looks like and what a healthy sex life has to offer. So, that's what we're here. That's why we do what we do, and to provide an outlet so that people can have access to sexual health resources that they can understand and that fits in with their lifestyle. So that's what we do. That's why we're here. So today, specifically, on Tuesdays, we talk about pleasure tools. And pleasure tools are external tools that you can add to your repertoire, throw in your bag to be able to bring that extra spice back into the relationship and bring, this just that extra little oomph. Because, especially in long-term committed relationships, sex can become repetitive. It can become more chore like than an experience that you both want to participate in, right? And so we have to keep that as an experience that we want to participate in and not just a chore. And one of the ways that we can do that is by bringing restraints into the bedroom. Now, what are restraints? Restraints are just as they sound. They are a tool that is used to immobilize or restrain you. Where did restraints come from? Well, it started from an ancient practice of tying, I don't know what they called them back then. Come on, we can do this. We are going to find the appropriate word, okay? They used them to tie up outlaws. Ha! They used them to tie outlaws, okay? And so essentially what became as what grew into shibari, which is the ancient practice of restraints from tying, grew from the practice of bounty hunters capturing outlaws and restraining those outlaws with intricate little rope ties that kind of blossomed into something else. So that's where it essentially comes from, that's what they've been able to trace the practice of restraining and tying um, for, for pleasure. That's where they were able to trace it back to. Now, that may not be the beginning or the end of it, but that's what we know. So that's what the the research says, is that it started back in the Gap with people, just getting caught and having to go over long distances, and then the bounty hunters would tie the outlaws in these, intricate little ties, and you bring them before the courts, and it just kind of grew from there. So that's where the practice of shibari or kimbaku, which are ancient forms of restraint used in other cultures. Okay. So that's where it came from. So how does it become a sexual activity? How does it become something that people practice as an arousal technique or as foreplay and, different other things? Well, the practice of restraint during sex is not, it's actually one of the more common, like when I'm talking to people about kinks, it's one of the ones that I can bring up that people are, they can relate to and have an understanding of, versus some of the other ones, even though it follows the same principle. uh Kinks and different types of arousal techniques can be used to kind of push the boundaries a little bit, right? And so even though this was originally used to detain outlaws, in sex, you want to kind of push. We're trying things out, right? We're trying to see what works, what feels good, and sometimes those things make it over into that realm. And there are a lot of things over there that, may seem like questionable practices, but when you break them down individually, they all follow a set rule and guideline of, this is how you do this safely. This is how this is protected and, consented to. And, it has all these different layers, right? The same thing is going to happen when you're talking about restraints in a pleasurable aspect, okay? So, first thing you need to do is make sure that if you are restraining yourself, that's a great place to start, okay? I would not recommend starting with another partner if you don't know what you're doing. Now, if you have someone who is willing to work with you and, help you learn, that's fine. But one of the most important parts about restraints, especially when you're talking about certain communities, is that there needs to be a level of respect and understanding of the nuances of the situation for you to be able um, to submit that as an option sexually, right? So some people have big feelings attached around restraints, have big feelings attached around being detained, and the heavy police presence in some communities. Some people have trauma associated with restraints. Some people have childhood trauma associated with restraints. And so there's all these other things that you may not be aware of that you have to take into account if you are looking at trying to introduce restraints into your play, okay? It has to be an experience that is consented to and is understood by all parties involved, okay? Um, and to do that, there needs to be someone there who knows what to do. Someone there who has taken an interest in this thing, who has um, attempted, these ties before, someone who just has a knowledge of what's going on. And, we're not winging this, everybody's not winging this together, okay? Especially not without the knowledge of the other person. Again, you may have a partner who is comfortable being your muse and is like, yeah, let's try this. You can try this on me anytime, so on and so forth. That's great. But you also need to be aware that that may not fly in all situations. Like, you might go in there and be like, hey, let me tie you up. And they be like, hell no, what you mean? Tie me up. Like, no, I got stuff to do tomorrow. I came here getting tied up with you. So you have to be prepared for that and be prepared for the different feelings that people may have associated with being restrained, especially being restrained and being vulnerable. Because being restrained during, I mean, you're vulnerable anytime you're restrained, which is kind of one of the reasons why it's popular. But being vulnerable when you're sexually aroused and probably not clothed in, just all of those different things play a part in how well you accept what's about to happen, right? So in those cases, you just want to be mindful of the people that you're dealing with, the person that you're interacting with, and just the amount of knowledge that you have on restraints. Now, why would some people want to do this? Why are some people interested in restraints? And, what's the big deal? You have a plethora of senses, okay? And those senses are tickling those senses is what starts the arousal process, okay? And those senses can be tickled in a lot of different ways. They can be activated and aroused in a lot of different ways. Being able to touch a pair of breasts, or being able to touch someone else's body, or being able to see someone else's body, being able to communicate, all of those are your senses. And being able to have them can be just as erotic as them being taken away. Okay. And so restraints are the act of taking away one or more of your senses so that your body has to adjust and enjoy whatever's happening without the access to that sense. And again, that can happen in ways that are familiar to you. Being blindfolded, for example, is one of the ways that your senses can be restrained because you cannot see what's going on. You only have your anticipation and what you can feel, smell. So you rely heavily on your other senses once that sense is restrained. Your sense of touch is a feeling. So your ability to touch and to move around and to take in the information that your fingertips are, exploring, is that it can be arousing. Taking that away and not giving you the option to do that and making you rely on your other senses to get to that arousal process is how you get into that. That's how it goes, right? And so that's where that additional anticipation comes from that builds that sexual energy. This is on my nerves. Okay. That builds that sexual energy. So there are many things that when you think of building erotic play, and when you think of adding play to the bedroom, don't just think of adding things. There's also going to be taking away things, and that's what restraints do. Is restraints take away your ability to move, your ability to control the environment, to take in additional information with one of your senses, and it makes you have to rely on the person that you're playing with, and also your other senses to help you build that energy, that sexual energy. And that sexual energy is the anticipation that fuels your process for your sexual arousal process. And your sexual arousal process looks like this. Okay, so when the sexual arousal process was studied, it is shown in these parts. So you have your desire, which is the initial thing that starts triggering the arousal process. Is, it could be a smell, it could be your partner coming across, in your view. It could be words that were spoken to you that triggers that desire, like, ooh, okay, are we being sexy right now? And then so when we decide, okay, yeah, this is sexy, I am interested in what's going on here, then the body starts the arousal process. You start moving up the ladder. So we start the arousal process, and in that process, this is where toys come in. Now, not it, you can use toys throughout any of this process, but this process is when you're going to be using those tools, those external tools, to make sure that you are getting the most out of your session. Okay, so that sexual arousal process is super important to making sure that you and your partner are going to have the best sexual experience in this scene. Okay, so restraints just give you that extra little oomph. So let's talk about different types of restraints and what we're actually going to be, what you're actually looking at. So I brought some of my good stuff here. We're going to start talking about rope, okay? Because that is the most common type of restraint and the most well recognized when you talk about rope. There are different types of rope that you can have. You can have a synthetic rope, you can have a natural rope. And whichever rope you choose, it has different properties based on whatever type of rope that you choose. And we'll do a breakdown on that on each type a little bit later, because we have breakdowns on like the pros and cons of synthetic, pros and cons of natural, things like that. But right now we're just doing like a high overview on restraints altogether. And so rope is one of those restraints. And there are lots of different places that you can get rope. There are ropes that come in different types. Just depending on your needs. And so what are you going to be looking at when you're talking about those needs? We're talking about, you're going to be looking at allergies. Do you have any issues? Does the partner have any issues? Do they have any allergies to any of the materials? And those kind of things are what you're going to be mapping out when you're introducing rope into your foreplay or just into your scene in general. So the basic that you can get, one that is common for people, is just going to be the polyurethane rope. Okay, this is just a rope. It's a nylon, usually made of like a plastic or polyurethane, and you can get this at any hardware store. And it's just, you can see it has a kind of a sheen on it. It does not have very much give or stretch on it. So depending on what you need this for, this is a good starter rope. Okay, and again, it's just, you get it off the roll at a hardware store. And just if you're doing some light roping, this is a good choice. Again, it's made of plastic, and how ropes are, you can see it has a bunch of little tendrils here. The strength of that rope is going to determine these tendrils, how many they are, how they're woven together, things like that. So this is an industrial strength rope used for, like, if it's at a hardware store, it's used for hardware reasons. So it has its pros and cons, but it is a pretty simple, pretty inexpensive rope for you to obtain. Now you can also use, depending on where you are, this is a clothesline. It is a rope that I use for classes, that you can just shows different options that you have available. Let me move this over so we can see. So this is just, it's a rope that's generally used as for clothesline. It has a little bit more stretch to it. So you can see it's kind of flexing. You can't see it much, but it has a little bit more flex to it that the other rope does not. And so just, if you're doing some light column tying or things like that, these are also pretty inexpensive. I think this is like 12 or, well, I bought it a long time ago, so don't give me the line. But I want to say it was like $12, $13 for this type of rope. And again, you can see it's a little bit stiffer. It doesn't have that sheen. This is cotton, so it will have the properties that cotton has, and is one of the ways that it can be used for restraints, as well as hanging up your clothes. Okay. But you can see it has, it's has a little bit of girth to it. You can get different sizes depending on what you need, what the diameter of it, depending on the activity that you're participating in. If you're doing like some rigging, which is you having hanging someone from somewhere, you have to make sure that you're choosing the right type of rope. And another type of rope that you will see very commonly is just this cloth rope that you get from like Amazon or overseas. And this is a really good beginner's rope because it's very soft. It's not as intimidating as some of the other ropes. And it's pretty cheap. It has something on the inside, but it does have a lot of flex to it. You could do all kinds of, put it into it. It has a lot of room for manipulation and for flex. It's also pretty easy to get tied and untied if you need to, just from, as from a beginner standpoint, that's important. The knots don't lock down so tensely as some of the other fibers. And so you're able to get it back out and get it back loose if you need to, especially in a pinch, to, if you are into this type of rope. Now, again, as far as ropes go, if you are a super beginner, I would use these, especially if you're introducing rope to someone uh, who has issues with restraint. It's really soft. This is the less intimidating rope. Okay. It comes in fun colors. So if you want to get purple or teal or all those other things that just make it not look so daunting and so scary, you can do that. And it comes in a lot of different lengths. So you can get from like 6 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet, most of the ropes that you see that people are going to be using usually run about 30 feet, 15 to 30 feet. And this just gives you a good bit of rope to move with and maneuver with and things like that. So this is a really good rope to start with. Okay. Now, when you start getting into the heavy duty stuff, you're going to start looking at more like natural ropes. And when you start looking at natural ropes, you're going to be looking more at like hemp rope and things like that. And so as you can see, this is a little bit more, you will see some of the frays on there. It's a little bit stiffer. You can't do some of the other stuff this has actually been broken in, so we'll talk about that. I think I have some out there that's not broken in, but this rope is a hemp rope. It is usually used I have to buy it from a marina place. So I buy it from a marina place. It comes in different widths and sizes, for the rope. And as you can see, we talk about those frays right there. You can see all those little tendrils, and that is what dictates the strength of the rope. And so each one of those, that's one. All of those are what's making all of these tendrils is what makes the strength and how much weight the rope can take. Now, if you're going to be doing some heavy roping or rigging, which is, where you would be restraining someone and tying them against their body weight onto a frame or hanging from a ceiling, you're going to need something that has a little bit more oomph to it. People also enjoy natural ropes more for the burn, for the little, you get what's called a rope burn as the rope like moves across your skin. Hello. So you can get a little extra bit of arousal and pleasure just by how that rope is moving across the skin. Now, these ropes have to be treated to be malleable enough for play. So essentially, what you have to do is you have to break the rope. And so every time I get a new spool of these, because I use a lot of these for my live classes, for my exhibitions, just to get people involved. So essentially what you have to do is when you get it, you want to wash the rope. So depending on where it is, you can wash it in. And I usually don't, when I say wash, I just put it in boiling water and just to kind of soften it up a little bit. And you have to wash them as you use them as well. So I still like wash them. But you're going to need beeswax, fire, and you're going to need something. I use a weight. So I use a dumbbell. And essentially what you're going to do, let me see if I have an open one, is that you are just going to wrap. So let me try to find the end of this. You would just wrap it around the dumbbell like this a few times. And then I have to bring it back and forth to break up the fibers and make them soft enough to move. So I have to do that. Like I have, let me show you how much I have. This is not all of it. Um, this was just the bag I grabbed. But I have to do that for all of this rope. So you have to go through and just make it where it is usable. You see it's all like soft and pliable. Let me go grab, I think I got a tube in the garage. Hold on. So it's dusty and dirty, but this is what it looks like. So it comes on a spool like this. I don't know how many of these I've had over the years, but I'm used to using them all down. But as you can see, it's a little bit more ragged, firm. These are a little bit firmer. I still had this one for a while though, so but you just kind of have to break that rope in. Now, some people actually don't want you to break the rope in. Some people like it rough and scraggly like that. So it just depends on your partner. But using those techniques, you have to break it. So wrap it around something you can use. Again, I use the dumbbell, so I wrapped it around the handle part of a dumbbell, and then you just have to move the fibers back and forth. I might do a tutorial on it one day and just kind of show you. Um, but to make it workable, and then you're going to use some beeswax on it. You have to run it through the beeswax, and just to kind of lay the fibers down, and then you're going to use some fire to singe off those extra pieces that roughen the rope up did. And you singe off those extra pieces, and it's ready to go. And so you can use those ropes over and over again. They don't last forever because they are made of natural fibers. They don't last forever, but they are the preferred rope for advanced restraints and advanced riggers and things like that. They're going to be using a natural rope with some give in it. Now, if you are going to be doing any type of roping, you need to make sure you have your safety things but nearby, okay? And when I say safety things, I mean these. Okay, these are EMT shears. Okay, so anytime you're doing any kind of roping, whether you are new, whether you are versed, whatever you are in tying people up in restraints, you need to make sure that you have a pair of these nearby. Because restraints have downsides. You can, if you tie somebody up and it's pinching a nerve or they can't breathe or it's squeezing their lungs and you need to get out quickly, it's not going to be trying to untie all of these beautiful knots you've put together. If you need to get somebody out quickly, we need to have EMT shears. So if you are playing with any type of ropes or restraints and you do not have these, you are playing unsafely. Okay, you need to have, and again, regular shears are fine, but EMT shears are made to cut through whatever. You only can use them a couple of times, so but they're made for heavy duty use. So you can get through a rope pretty quickly with these shears if necessary, if your partner is in a bind and they need to get down pretty quickly. Okay, so That's the scoop on rope per se, on like roping, but those are not the only types of restraints. Okay, if the person is has a, a kind of a no thank you to being tied up with rope, that's absolutely fine. um, you don't have to use rope to practice restraints and to play in restraints. They have plenty of other options that don't send those triggers through the body, that you can still get the feeling of restraints but not have to deal with rope. And there are certain subsets of people that I'm sure you can understand why they don't want to deal with rope. Okay. Me and my husband were talking about that the other day. How that, you remember that salsa commercial where they used to be like, New York City, get a rope. Why? Why why would they say that? Why? What are you gonna do with that rope? What did y'all do with them ropes? Hmm. So again, it's completely valid to have feelings about restraints. It's completely valid to have feelings about rope, because that is the society that we live in, and people come in with their building blocks that make them, and we have to work around those building blocks. So, ooh, okay. So, what other types of restraints can we go into? Okay, so before we get deep in the weeds, let's talk about numero uno that might cause some issues. Is going to be handcuffs. Okay, these are just party handcuffs. I used to have some real ones, but I don't know where they went. I had them hanging up in my escape for a long time, but these are just like party handcuffs, and these are a good start if you're looking for a light play and light restraint for the wrists and maybe the ankles, depending on how far out it goes. I don't really like these for ankle play, just because like it's not really built for that. It's not really built for a wrist either, but you have a bone usually right there, and it's just but if that's all you have, that's all you have, and I'm not gonna mess up your party, okay? I'm not gonna do it. But these kind of party restraints have they have a couple of safety features that can help make sure that you can get in and out of them if you need to. And there's usually this little clip on the side, right? That if that is pushed down, it releases the cuff. So we have it in there. Push down this lever, and now we have free movement in and out of the handcuff. Okay, so that lever is kind of holding it there. There's a little fake key thing on the front. Do I have, is that gonna fit? Hold on, let me see if this is the key. I don't think it is. No, that's the keys for something else. Okay. It looked like it used to have keys. I don't know where they probably in the bottom of a box or something somewhere. But it also has like a little lock on the front there. And you can just stick a key in there. You're supposed to be able to turn it, and that would release it as well. These are not super sturdy, so like as far as like trying to hold someone indefinitely, that's not what these are for. These are just for show cuffs, and can be used easily to maybe tie one person's wrist and then tie the other one around a bedpost or a chair. And when you think about restraints, don't necessarily just think about um, arms behind the back or arms to the front. Think of tying, restraining someone to something as well. So you would have these, you could put this in over here, and you can put this in on a door handle or something, I don't know. And you can restrain them to an object as well, which is also good if you like to play stuck. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So these are good for like a good play. And again, they go all the way through. So, or at least I think they go all the way through. Do they? Yeah, okay. Oh no, the little diamonds don't, little dress up part don't let it. Okay, so they can go on and off pretty easily. Pretty they're not made of a sturdy material, but so here's the thing about handcuffs though, is that people also are going to have big feelings around handcuffs, and rightfully so, because a lot of people have experiences of law enforcement doing unrighteous things when people are in handcuffs. I seen a dude get punched, completely handcuffed, get punched in the face by a cop. And so those types of things can create barriers to being able to use restraints in the bedroom, specifically when you're talking about handcuffs, because of the way other people have misused the system, right? It can come from a heavy police violence or a police presence. It can come from um, having an experience prior to this with another partner that didn't go well and you couldn't get out. What was that? Oh, you remember that movie Gerald's Game, where he tied himself up and tied the lady up and then died? Like, people just have a lot of feelings around handcuffs and being restrained, and so you may have to work outside the box to be able to experience restraints with some individuals, okay? But if you still feel this way about cuffs, okay, about these cuffs come in a lot of different ways. You can get, um, these are just a Velcro type of cuff. There are two on the end, and they Velcro open and close, open and open. So slide your arms, legs, whatever through those cuffs, through that cuff, and you can get the same thing without having that daunting, feeling of the actual metal cuffs or with rope. So essentially it does the same thing. I'll put it on. And you are restrained, right? And you can see how hard I'm pulling by how fast my fat on my arms is moving. But you see, it's pretty sturdy. Like, it's not like you can, it still gives you that very sturdy feeling without, that the feelings that come along with what you may have with your other triggers, right? So there are alternative options for restraints if you have feelings around the certain types. So, and this is super inexpensive. Again, I probably bought this 10 years ago. So I don't know how much it was. I think I got these in like 2015, 16. Like, it's been a long time. But you see, they still is good condition. I use these for my classes. I've done a lot of live classes, a lot of online classes, like hundreds of them, and they're still in good shape. People will play with them, touch them, use them on themselves, and they last long and they do the job. So this is one of the type of restraints that you can indulge in without feeling without feeling so overcome with the other things that might be coming up trying to use handcuffs or trying to use rope, right? Other types of handcuffs, they also make like a cloth cup. This actually goes on one of the one of my builds. This goes on Chauncey, which is a torture chair that I built for my Halloween exhibitions. So there are 4 of these, but they are this is padded on the inside. You can see it has a clip, so it clips onto. I have to find a picture of Chauncey. I have to show y'all. But it clips onto whatever you want to clip it onto. And it's sturdy. It just goes around and you buckle here and then slide in the loop that way, and you have a cuff. Okay, a pretty sturdy cuff, not gonna cut into the sides. This one is good for legs, for ankles, because it does have that extra cushioning where that bone is. And still, you can still get the same restraint pleasure if you want to put a chain or something in between the two. You can do that however you want to use them. Like, it works. So this is another cuff option that you have, and it doesn't look as daunting. If you find them, you can, if somebody finds them, you can, oh, those are for my exercise machine for when I do yoga or something, or whatever. I don't know how people be in your business, but you don't gotta lie either. You can tell them it's it's for sex and mind your business, okay? um, but you have this as an alternative option for handcuffs if you are into restraints but still feel a little ways about some of the restraints. Okay, so other options that we have, again, we have more Velcro options. This is an arm and leg restraint. I bought these, but I wasn't able to use them because my thighs are I got grown people thighs. These is for little bitty thighs. But this is supposed to go around the thigh area, and so it would hook onto the thigh, and then it also has a little handcuff next to it. So you would put the thigh in there in the hand, and it would immobilize your partner like this, with their hands straight down by their sides while they are at your disposal. So this is another little cuff. This came with the other ones that I bought, a million years ago. So there are two of them. And they both do the same thing. There's not a side. You can use left or right, whichever one. But essentially, it just goes around, and then you put the wrists in the cuffs right there, and put that around the thigh. So, and that, again, it just immobilizes you, puts your hands to your side, and doesn't give you the option to move or feel around. You're only, at the mercy of whoever has you bound, okay? So that's another type of restraint. Now, when you start getting into the bigger restraints and talking about immobilizing, we had pulled this out once before. Dang, it's a lot of like dust and stuff. I bet that came from that thing, cause no, that's rope pieces. So you talk about big restraints. We want to talk about cuffs. We could talk about this. Is a spreader bar. Okay, that is the name of it. That's the job. It is a bar that you can put your ankles in this part on the ends, and your wrists go in the part in the middle. And again, you see the Velcro. It has the Velcro option in there, and you can adjust the spreader bar with these little pieces here. They pull out. You can go out here, you can go in here, wherever you want it to be, however far apart you want. And it also has a lock on the end of the bar. So this is a lock that you can use to make sure that the person can't get out, right? Well, you want them to be able to get out, but not unless you want them to get out. So, but there's a lock so that you can't open up the cuff on this one, and the keys are on there. The key to get out is on here. So and that's just where I put them to make sure that I can keep them. Probably, I don't know where, but that's where I put them. So this is another form of restraint that you can use. And again, it's just supposed to limit the amount of mobility that you have and allow you to give yourself to someone that you're supposed to trust. It has to be someone that you trust, okay? And as you can see, the cuffs are super mobile down here. They can move up and down. The ones that are in the front You can put them in the bag. You can put them however you need them to be. It doesn't really matter. And then, the bar is super heavy and sturdy, so it's not going to go anywhere. So this is another form of restraint that you can use if you have um, some issues with how some of the other places, how some of the other restraints show up. um, you can just branch out and think outside the box. That's the goal, is to get you to think outside of the box when it comes to restraints and how to use restraints in the sexual context. Now, when you start getting into the big dog stuff, okay, this is one of my this is a restraint. This actually goes down. So this part goes around the neck and has a key as well. It goes around the neck and can be locked, and then it's locked around the neck. And then as you go down, you will notice that it has there's one that fell off somewhere. There it has bars. All of those are for, this goes down your back and this goes onto the arms. So both hands, both of your wrists are going to go in these at the bottom, and then your arms are just going to go all the way up. So essentially it's going to have you with your arms behind your back like this. And that is the purpose of that restraint. With it around your neck, you'll have the collar around your neck. You'll have the restraint going up your arms to keep your shoulders and your arms in line behind you. But it takes away the mobility of your arms. I've had this one for a long time too. Maybe about the same. This is probably one of the earlier pieces I bought. But I need to buy some new stuff. It's been a while. But yeah, I've had this one for a while as well. And it just gives you an idea of how big the restraint game is. Okay? That it's not just ropes, that it's not just handcuffs, that you can use a lot of different things to bring that feeling of taking that away. You can bring that back into, that sensory deprivation back into the bedroom. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat about anything that we are discussing. I don't, okay, so Amy's still pretty new at this. Okay, I'm still pretty new. And so I don't know. I got to make sure that I am streaming on all of my stuff. Because, again, I never thought, I didn't know that it would come like this. Like, I really thought I was going to be tech savvy for a long time, but man, it sneak up on you. You be like, what's the kids doing now? What are the babies doing right now? So you never know. Okay, how do I see? Ooh. Ooh. Hey, guess what? It says that I got some money on TikTok. I didn't know that. It's only some change, but still, it's more than I had. So this says that I am live on TikTok. So if you are on TikTok, can you drop something in the chat for me to let me know y'all can see me? No matter where you are, drop just a emoji or something in the chat, just so I know that we're working. If you can't, that's fine. I get it. I know some of y'all are knee deep in work stuff right now, so I get it. Okay, that shows that I am live, and that is me holding the spreader bar, so that one works. Okay, so I'm where I'm supposed to be on that one. It says, oh, I can pop this out. Okay. I also think that I have. Anyway, I think it's working. I'll check after to be sure. But I think that we did it because I think today is the first day that I've been able to to stream live on TikTok. So if you are watching this from TikTok, you are going to see a lot more of me. I am not necessarily promoting it because I usually try to keep my TikTok to myself. I like to show my nephews and my friends and all that stuff. I don't want to just be no online personality, content creator. Um, so I don't want y'all to have all my stuff. But I do know that I have a lot of like my clients are on TikTok, so I know they'll pop in. Um, but yeah, we have the the topic of restraints comes up often when I'm doing like couples and do talking to people about their kinks and the type of things they like. That comes up often. The being tied up and tying someone up. So those are typically called a rope top and a rope bottom. So if you like to tie people up, you would be considered a rope top. If you like to be tied up, you would be considered a rope bottom. If you like to do both, then you would be considered a switch. Same way it is, or reverse. Same way it is in other communities. So um, just depending on what you need and what the goal is for you, restraints can definitely play a part in your sexual activity, and how you use those restraints could have a positive impact on your sexual health, your your mental health, because what a lot of people don't realize is that if your sexual health is being stifled, you are also going to suffer with your mental health. You are going to wear that in your body. If you don't feel seen, if you don't feel encouraged, if you don't feel like you belong, if you feel ostracized or feel like you are in being judged for how you present or the feelings that are coming up in your body, all of that can manifest as mental health issues. It can manifest as depression. It can manifest as excessive anger issues. It can manifest as anxiety. And so, all of those different things, if you are experiencing some of those issues and you're not quite sure what to pinpoint it on, it may be the way that your body is represented in its sexuality. So, and this is a something that you'll see with people who struggle with living in their truths, right? They're talking about the level of inflammation that goes on in the body just trying to survive. So imagine trying to survive in a situation where your body wants to do something that society doesn't want you to do, right? Your body wants to wear lace drawers, but society thinks that that's weird. And so you are pinned between this thing that I really want to do that makes me happy and this thing that I know that could get me judged by other people if they, saw me or anything like that. And so though living with that kind of pressure and living with that kind of um, grief for who you could be can manifest in the body. It can manifest in the body as arthritis. It can manifest in the body as other anti-inflammatory diseases. It can manifest in the body as stomach pain, as cramps, as nausea, as anxiety, as a tight chest, as panic attacks. It can exist in a lot of different ways inside of the body if you don't feel like your sexuality is being acknowledged and your sexual needs are being met. So, I just want to make sure that I am making space for the people who are still struggling to find their space, who, someone who is interested in trying restraints but feels conflicted with bringing it up with their partner, and that may feel like they're going to be judged, or like they are like someone is going to try to use that information against them in the future. all these different things could bring about tension in the body. And a lot of the things that happen with your sexuality also are coupled with um, the things that can happen to your mind. And so yesterday we talked about endometriosis, and we talked about the pain and all the things that are associated with endometriosis. And then we talked about the effect that that has on your mental health. So not only are you dealing with excessive pain, excessive bleeding, all these things, but you're also being um, told that, this is just regular stuff, that you should deal with this, and that, you shouldn't be this torn up behind a period, and all those types of things. And it just adds that extra layer of anxiety and anxiousness to the situation, because how your body feels is different than how your mind feels, and or what you society has put in your mind as how these things should be presented. Okay, if you want to wear a fuzzy bra outside and you have to think like, okay, people are going to think I'm weird, or people are going to feel uncomfortable with how I'm presenting, then, that could have an effect on how you show up in the world, and have an effect on how your brain processes your sexuality. And that conflict could cause inflammation in the body. It could cause tension. It could cause anxiety. It could cause an influx in panic attacks. And so, although we're talking about pleasure centered issues, we are also talking about your mental health, and, making sure that your sexual health stays important, that you feel comfortable advocating for yourself, that you feel comfortable asking for the types of interactions that you want, that you are surrounding yourself with people who want the best for you, and who want you to enjoy your life and enjoy your sexual existence, connecting with the right type of people to make sure that you are doing that in a safe space, and that you are doing it with someone who is curious and enthusiastic about the experience, not someone who feels coerced or pressured into doing it. And so there is a lot of nuance around bringing your sexual health to the forefront. And I know that right now, in the times that we're living in, that's going to make it really difficult. It's going to make it really difficult to want to talk about sex, to want to talk about the different things surrounding sex. And that's already on top of the things that are difficult to talk about anyway, like erectile dysfunction and, pain during sex, and lubrication issues, and all of those different type of things are hard to bring up, but they are necessary conversations to make sure that you are living in your best version of your sexual self. Okay? So, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. You can email me. Um, you could send me an email if you are. I don't know if that went here, so let me just put it here too. Email me if you need to. If you're not sure how to start the conversation around um, sexual health, if you're not sure how to start the conversation around bringing external tools into the bedroom, please feel free to reach out. I'm trying to make sure that I don't have that nobody's sending me questions and stuff right now, because sometimes I'll get offline and if somebody is messaging me and like, hey, can you, and I'm like, oh gosh, I missed it. I'm so sorry. But please feel free to leave them in the chat if you have them. If you have anything to add to it. Let's see. Nope, I don't have anything in there. What about in here? I'm hungry. We're fasting again. Well, actually, I'm Not necessarily fasting, but eating raw and having eating fruits and stuff. Okay. All right, all right. So, restraints. The the overall consensus is, again, restraints is one of the easier kinks to try. It's also really good to try with household objects. Okay, so if you are like, I'm not spending no money on this, we are not like, you ain't getting another dollar out of me for this. You can use household items. Okay, so old stockings make great restraints. They're easy to cut. They are don't really have a use once you've torn them all up anyway. So you could use a pair of old stockings or tights. You can use ties. Neckties are a good restraint tool. Long socks work well. Don't don't use no old stinking gym socks, okay? I mean, you can if that's what y'all are into. If that's the part of the role play, that's fine. But you don't want to use no old beat up, brown heel in the sock. But if you got to use what you got to use, you got to use what you got to use. I'm not judging. But you can use an old sock. You can use head scarves for restraints. And again, when you're talking about restraints, think outside of just tying the wrists together and tying the knees together. I mean, the um, tying the ankles together. You can look at restraining the knees together. You can tie to other objects. So the arm of a chair, the leg of a chair, the arm of the bed, the frame of the bed, the corner of the bedpost, the lamp. You can restrain someone to anything, and you just tie one end to the thing and you tie the person up with the other thing. Another quick tip, if we're using rope, let's use this one so we can see good. And this one. Oh, no, that one's not already open. Okay. Quick tip about using rope. If you are using rope and you run out of rope, you can actually attach new rope to the old rope. Okay? And to do that, you're going to tie what's called a lark knot. Now, let me see. I haven't done this. Okay. Okay. So, do I have a knot on this end? No, I do not. Where's the end? Okay, this one, you see how to see how I wore that out. Okay, so if you're at the end of this rope, okay, we're at the end. You're gonna take that. You're gonna make you a little like a triangle like that. You're gonna loop that around so it is like that. So fingers in the loop, go like this, and then you are going to. Am I doing that right? Hold on. No, I was not. Okay, so you're gonna go inside the loop this way and come this way. Okay, that's how. Let me make sure. Let me tie it on there to be sure. Dang, I haven't done this in a while. Nope, that's not how you do it. Okay, let me try it again. Ah, okay. I just remembered. Okay, hands in, go under. You're going. Okay, let me. Ooh, I'm ashy. Hands in, go under like that. You're gonna pinch, and then you're gonna make a loop. Okay, you see that? Let's do it again. Okay, we're gonna take the rope. We're gonna make our loop. We're gonna go like that. Pinch. Take those two in the middle and go like that. Okay, so now that we have that loop, we are going to insert the new rope inside and then we'll just pull down. And now we have more rope. So we're at the end of that rope, and now we have more rope. End of one rope, beginning of the other. All right, let's do it one more time. Okay, we'll use the other rope this time. So we have our rope, we have our loop. That's this little piece is throwing me off. We have our loop. We're gonna go in, pinch our thumbs, come under till we make that little side, and we'll just stick the rope in that side and pull down. Oh shit, I came out. Hold on. There. Pull that through. Pull that rope down. Damn it. I think I need a knot at the end. Hold on. Or maybe it's because of this rope. That's probably what it is. That's not the one I need to be. Let me use another. Oh, there we go. Here's a good one. All right. So this is going to be our new rope. This is going to be our old rope. Okay. Inside. Pull down. And now we have more rope. Okay. That's our old piece. That's the end of our old piece. That's our new piece. And you can make that as long as you want or whatever. But it's a way for you, if you're using rope, to extend the rope that you have. Now, of course, the ropes are going to work best with their type of ropes. Let's see how this does with its own rope. Where's the end of this? There it is. Okay, so we got the end of this one. We're going to make some more. We're going to make that loop. See it? Put the red one inside of there. And then we're going to pull down. Yeah, that's because of this, the type of rope that it is. So when we talked about it, these are a little more slippery. They have a lot more give. So that's why these ropes are a little bit safer. You can see it just kind of slides out. Those other ropes, not so much. So these are just for light play. Again, the cotton ones that you get from like Amazon or whatever, those are going to be just for light play. When you're talking about like heavy, you can't use this for rigging. Like if you're going to be suspending, doing suspension bondage, absolutely not. That's not what this is for. You're going to need something that has a good bit of bite to it and can, lock on to the knots so that they don't slip, because you don't want slip knots. So that's that. Okay, so that is our business about restraints. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule for the week, what we're going to be talking about for the week, so you can kind of have an idea of the shows that we have coming up so that you can lock in on the ones that you don't want to miss. Okay. So tomorrow at 2 p.m., we're going to be doing Ask Coach Katasha. This is our live Q&A for sexual health questions. If you are available, you can stop by. You can ask your questions in the chat. If you are shy or you don't want to have your business out there for everybody to be in your business, you can send those questions to the email, to our Ask Coach Katasha box, which is askcoachkatasha at expressionoverrepression.com or expressionoverrepression@gmail.com. You can send those questions to either one of those boxes, and I will bring them back to the show on Wednesday. Whatever questions you have, please feel free to ask. Do not feel like, this is a stupid question or whatever. That is not what I'm here for. I am not here to judge you or make any kind of jokes about how you express yourself or whatever you're into. Again, most of the stuff that y'all be asking me about, I done did and moved on from. So I don't have no room to judge you. Okay, none at all. So you have an open space to be able to ask questions about anything that you are sexually curious about, whatever, and I will answer them earnestly and honestly without judgment. So that's going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. On Thursday, we are doing Sex Tech Thursday, where we are talking about virtual and augmented reality and the future of sex. This is actually kind of exciting because, like, I need to be on the front row of virtual reality sex. Like, I need to be on the front row. Like, why am I not already invited? So that's going to be Thursday at 12:30. On Thursdays, we do all Sex Tech Thursday, which is us just discussing the new technologies in sex, what's to come, what are they researching, what are we looking forward to for the future of sexuality. And then on Friday, we do Late Night with Coach Katasha. So we do that and whatever's going on in the sexual world for the week, and just kind of get your opinions on it and get an unbiased understanding of different type of behaviors. We talk about relationships, we talk about dating, um, all those types of things. So bringing some of that into the world. And then we've already done the schedule Monday, but on Mondays we do Sex Ed with Coach Katasha. And Sex Ed with Coach Katasha is going to be your basic your sexuality, your basic sex education, where we talk about different parts of the body, what they're supposed to do, how they're behaving, and what we can do to fix them if they're not behaving in the way that we want. So for next week for Sex Ed with Coach Katasha, we're going to be talking about PMDD, which is going to be post menstrual dysphoric disorder. So just that's what we spend those Mondays doing at 2 p.m. It's just talking about different things in sex education and how we can further our sexual health and how to advocate for our sexual health in the future. Because a lot of the conversations that are wrapped around sexuality and sexual health are not being had. And as we move into these times where people are not going to have access to sexual health, where, rights are being peeled away and, different types of access is going to be cut back, we're going to put people in a bind where they are not going to know where to go if they have questions about, erectile dysfunction, if they have questions about their mental health medications and their libido, if they have, because right now, statistically, only 38% of doctors talk to their patients about their sexual health. I think it's like 38% talk to their patients about sexual health. So that leaves 70% of patients who are not getting any kind of assistance with their sexual health. And that is going to leave oh gosh, it is a super burden on society. This is completely unrelated, but I was reading about rectal foreign bodies. Which a rectal foreign body is just anything that is assumed to be inserted into the anus that, was not supposed to be there, right? Like 84% of rectal foreign body cases that present in emergency rooms are men. 84%. And so here's the thing about that is that statistic alone shows how sex education is not being used in the proper way, right? Because there are tools that you can use that are to be properly inserted into that space that would not have you in the emergency room, right? But when I was reading a case where a bottle was lodged. A rectal foreign body was a bottle with water in it. It had water inside of it, liquid inside of it. Was put in a man's body, had went up into his intestines. He went to his wife brought him to the emergency room. He went to the emergency room and did not tell them what was wrong. Did not tell them that there was a bottle in there. Had no idea why he hadn't pooped and why he was having abdominal pain and why he couldn't keep food down. Right? And so he's in there with his wife, and you know that the bulk of that happened and the conversation that was happening was around shame. But I was reading it was a medical paper that I was reading. Let me see if I can find it, because I don't want you to think I'm storying. Um, um who's that? What is this? Oh, that's not what I need. Okay. Let's do this. What year did I see that? What? Because I looked at a. Let me see if any of them are still red. That'll let me know which one I clicked on. Because this was just the other day. And it was a medical paper. None of them are. Um. So I don't know if I'm gonna find that paper. But he sat in the emergency room and they had to do an MRI, and that's how they found out the that he had a rectal foreign body. That they had found weights, they have found mixed concrete, they have found all types of things, dishes, bottles, all types of things. And again, those things are not made or created to be used in that manner. That is not what they're for. There are things that are for that. They have tools that are for uh, rectal pleasure, for you using for prostate stimulation. And using those tools would mean you wouldn't end up in the emergency room. But because of the shame that's around prostate stimulation and around different types of kinks and sexuality, we are not having those conversations. And, I'm not saying that those people know or don't know that they exist, but if we break the shame of someone purchasing those tools to be able to use them for what they are used for, then we can open up the lane for the conversation, and then we can also cut down on people sticking things into their bodies that um, that are not a part of sexual pleasure. Okay, it will stop us from being able. And again, you are having to go to the emergency room to tell everyone in the emergency room, what's wrong with you, what is going on inside your body, and that also is another reason why people feel certain types of shame around anal play and toys and things like that. And so we want to just, if we can nip it in the bud, let's nip it in the bud. You don't have to suffer through that. You don't have to stick things that are not made for the anus into the anus, because they make things that are specifically for that you don't have to have a conversation with someone about why you're using it. Now, you shouldn't be embarrassed that you are using things to stimulate the prostate and that you are using things inside of the anus, because there's a large central nerve hub in there in the prostate that you can feel and that is pleasurable. And it sucks that that's where they put it. It's stuck that's where it is. But there are things that you can use to stimulate that nerve hub that do not cause you pain, will not have you having to pay out a medical bill or explain why a 2-liter is lodged in your lower intestine. Okay, so if you are going to be using toys, which is what this is what this class is for, is helping you to choose the right toys for what you're trying to do and to make sure that you are playing with the toys in a safe manner. Okay. The household items are good for external use, but I do not recommend um, using household items for internal use. That's not what they're for. Okay. And again, you could essentially lose something up the anus because it could travel into the tract and all that kind of stuff depending on what type of item it is. And just to, I don't want you to think that I am. Hold on, let's get in the chat about it. um Hold on. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, these are some of the different things that people have found in the rectum. I know we wasn't originally talking about this, but we talking about it now. You see, that's a bottle. That's a bottle. That's a dumbbell. Yep, yep. Another bottle. What's this? That looks like a can of shaving cream or something with a nozzle on it. Don't know what that is. But those are things that do not need to be. What is that? Trigger warning. We're pulling up a paper. It's a carrot. It's a carrot. And so that also that goes with food as well. You should not be putting food into your body, okay? You are There is a certain shape that is necessary for anal play that the what you think it is and what the actual shape is very different. And so although a carrot is very phallic like, it does not have the tools that are necessary for removal if you get that into your anus, right? Because when you look at toys for the rectum, there's a neck on those toys. So there's usually a base, a flared base, a skinny neck, and a flared bottom, right? That flared bottom and that skinny neck is what is necessary for play back there. And so that carrot doesn't have that. It's a straight taper on there. So you don't have that neck. And so your body cannot pull that back out. Like, it cannot latch around it to hold it in place, and it cannot pull it back out. And so that small neck is so that the anal sphincter, the one on the outside and the one on the inside, can lock around that neck and hold the toy in place so that it can be easily removed when you're ready to remove it, and it doesn't travel up into the intestines. So picking the toy that you need for what you're trying to do is a critical part of your safety. Okay. So next Tuesday, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how do you pick the perfect toy for what you need. And we'll go through the steps on, what do you need the toy for? What's the price range? All those different things. And we will discuss the best way to get through that experience and not end up in the hospital, because that's what we don't want. We don't want you to do something that's going to make you have to end up in the hospital and discussing your sexuality with medical professionals, which I do want to encourage you to do that, but not if you don't have to, not in this sense, because you can enjoy this, you can experience that pleasure without having to come home with a doctor bill. Okay, that's, I don't know where you are, but I'm in the United States. That's $1 million doctor bill for something that you don't need. You don't need a doctor bill for that. They make a toy that you can get in and out easily. You shouldn't be having to have carrots, and that's what they said, that most of the this is what you need to know if you have a tendency for rectal foreign objects, is that most of those objects are removed by hand. Okay? Most of those objects are removed by pulling it out. So, it's not a surgery. They're not going to cut you open and put you to sleep. They're going to go in there and get it in most cases. So, just keep that in mind when you are, sticking things up there that should not be stuck up there, that somebody's going to stick their arm in there and go get it. So, just use the stuff you're supposed to use, y'all. Just not too much. So, we'll talk about that. We'll get into that more in depth on next Tuesday. Tomorrow is going to be Ask Coach Katasha. Again, if you have any sexual health questions or anything that you have had on your mind, or something that you've been arguing with somebody about that you want to know, is this right or is this wrong or whatever, please, reach out to me. You can, I don't know if you can still see it. You should still be able to see it, but the email address is expressionoverrepression.com. You can find me on any of the social media sites as well. So that's going to be, you can find me on almost anything as Coach Katasha. Let me give you my link tree so that whatever social media site you want to find me on, you'll be able to find it on my link tree. So, again, please reach out. I would rather you ask me than to just be wondering and out there fumbling around trying to figure it out. We'll be back tomorrow with our live questions. I look forward to spending that time with you. Thank you again for showing up and for participating. I appreciate you all, and I will see you tomorrow at 2 p.m.